Did you know some studies show young children laugh up to 300 times a day, while adults laugh only around 15 to 20 times a day? If you want to learn how to bring laughter back into your marriage, you've got to tune in to this conversation with Ted Cunningham, a pastor, marriage author and speaker, and comedian. He shares practical advice on how to find the funny again in life and marriage. Life can be hard, but it doesn't mean the joy has to be tossed out the window. We're sure you'll love this conversation and giggle along the way, too. All right, so Ted Cunningham, welcome to the WinShape Marriage Podcast. We're so glad to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, you have spoken at some WinShape Marriage retreats, and I haven't got to actually be a beneficiary of that in person, but I have heard amazing things. Actually, I had a friend at church come up to me and said, "Have you been to Ted's retreat? I love the laughs." And I was like, "No, I haven't got to go to that one yet." She said, "You need to clear everything on your calendar to get to that retreat." So she thoroughly enjoyed it. I know it is well received. And so, yeah, definitely glad to have you this morning.
It is one of my favorite places to speak. If you have not been to the chapel for an event, when that room is full, and full is what, 200 people. It's just a wonderful place. I do a lot for WinShape. I also do a lot for serving marriages, the first responders, military event. And that's a great event too. Having breakfast with firefighters, police officers, military veterans. It's a phenomenal time.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit more, just for those listening who may not have also heard you speak in person. Tell us a little bit more about your background and a little bit about who you are.
Okay. You want me to go back to childhood, or should I just?
Yeah.
No.
We can unpack it all if you want.
My wife Amy and I have been married for 30 years this October.
Okay.
And so we have entered into the empty nesting phase. Our daughter got married a couple years ago. And in a couple of months, the first weekend of May, will go to my daughter and son-in-law's graduation at Missouri State.
Okay.
The next weekend, we'll go to my son's graduation at Liberty University. 2 weeks after that, we'll go to my son's wedding.
Oh, wow.
And so we have a lot going on, a lot of big milestones coming up here we're excited about. We're in a new season stage of life. And we started a church here in Branson, Missouri 24 years ago. Okay. And we meet in an abandoned theme park and have for over 20 years. And
you guys,
so
I
kind
roller
of
coasters like during the...
So a lot of people ask, over the years, most of the park has been liquidated, and it's just everything's been scattered out literally around the world. Rides have been purchased and taken places. We had a wooden roller coaster in our parking lot.
Okay.
That it's actually the only viral video I've ever had in my life. When they took it down, they hooked a chain around the top of this massive, as you can imagine, multi-million-dollar roller coaster.
Right.
And they just started yanking on it with a bulldozer or a backhoe. And it finally came down, and our video guy videoed it, put it online. TMZ picked it up. All these channels picked it up. Got millions of views within a couple of days. And I tell people, our preaching doesn't get much, we don't get much traction on that. But take down a wooden roller coaster in a dramatic way, and the world lights up.
That is funny. So what does that look like? Is there like a building that's there that you guys meet at, or?
Actually, so we've taken over a good part of, I call it the corner of the theme park, but we've got about 7 buildings. So that's, I think, what surprises people the most when they come here. It's very much a campus feel.
Okay.
And in the Ozarks, we get away with that 80 to 90% of the time. Weather affects us 10, 20% of the time. Mm-hmm. But we have outdoor seating as well. And I joke with people that, when it rains, we truly are down 500-600 people on the weekend.
Okay.
And so I get up all the time and say, "Yes, Lord, we'll take up our cross and follow you, but not an umbrella. We're not picking up an umbrella." Okay. Staying home when it rains.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. Well, if I'm ever in Missouri, I'm going to have to find my way over to you guys. I don't think I knew that about the church background, so that's cool.
And there's a whole group of people online. There's a whole world of people who go to abandoned theme parks to film, and it's
Yeah.
almost like, and everybody that comes here is like, I feel like I'm on the set of a Scooby-Doo episode, because
Right.
they're always
That is funny.
finding somebody in a theme park.
That is funny. Well, very cool. Well, yeah, that's just a cool introduction into your background. So thank you for sharing a little bit more about that. Want to back up just a minute. I know several years ago at this point, it feels like forever ago, and then also yesterday at the same time, but 2020, what a year. I believe that is the year that you wrote the book A Love That Laughs. Did I have that date correct? Or
You have that correct, and
okay.
that's actually the punchline of the book.
Yeah.
It never meant to be.
Well, tell us a little bit about what inspired that book and just kind of inspired you writing that.
So I know a lot of my friends who are in the marriage and family ministry, they write books, that they think there's a need for. I do as well, but I also am really only going to write a book that I enjoy writing and something I want to study and I want to research. As a pastor, I'm preparing sermons all the time. And so writing is almost like a release to me. And so I love studying humor. I love studying laughter. I use it when I teach and do conferences and retreats and stuff so much that I wanted to get, better at it. So I just started studying it and just realized so much of this plays into our marriage every day. We in marriage world do a lot with conflict. We do a lot with communication. And I just know for Amy and I over 30 years, there's so much serious that hits us. There's so much from the world that's thrown at us. We know how to deal with the heavy in ministry and the grind of life and the difficult seasons and stages of life. And we deal with it every day in ministry. For our marriage, we've had to prioritize and learn to walk on the lighter side of life. And every couple has a shared sense of humor. Our shared sense of humor is going to be different than even our closest of friends. There'll be some overlap. But I started studying it. I'm like, there's a lot here that couples could really benefit from. So I put the book together. I did it with Focus on the Family, finding your shared sense of humor, so it's called A Love That Laughs.
Yeah.
My problem was I released it 2 weeks before the global pandemic. And so I always joke with people, we've sold 37 copies because think about it.
Right.
Literally March of 2020 did you know anyone in the mood to laugh?
Right. No.
As the world was shutting down, our rhythms, our plans, everything just went away, and we're sitting at home. And shock and denial is that first stage of grief, and that's what the pandemic was. It was collective grief. And by the time we hit summer, we were in the anger stage of grief. And I was just laughing, shaking my head, telling Amy, all of our events canceled. No one's interested in reading a book on laughter.
Right.
Maybe we should find new purpose in life. So I tell people now, if you're going to write a book on laughter, release it 2 weeks before a global pandemic.
Right. So your marketing plan didn't necessarily come to fruition, but
Yeah.
Well, so kind of based off of that, I mean, you have something like a global pandemic, right? But as you mentioned earlier, it doesn't just take a global pandemic. I mean, life in general, we've chalked up life to be hard. Like it feels heavy, it feels hard. And I don't know if that's like the adult perspective. I don't know if it's because we've grown out of our adolescence and the rose-colored glasses are off and gone and they're in the attic and they're nowhere to be found. But it just feels that most people walk around with kind of just an underlying demeanor of I'm moving through difficulties most of the time. And I'm just curious, like, why do you think that generally we take that perspective? Why do we take that more hard, difficult, maybe negative approach to like our day to day?
Yeah. Well, I think from a biblical perspective, we know life is short, life is uncertain, and life is hard. Like we have to add that third piece. And I love to quote Ecclesiastes 9:9, enjoy life with your wife. But when you get to the end of that verse, it says, in the midst of the toilsome labor under the sun. So under the sun is just Ecclesiastes, that Solomon's expression for life upon this earth, this side of heaven, is difficult. Toilsome there means grueling, right? Making a living, providing for a family takes a lot of hard work. I think that perspective is very accurate, that life is challenging, life is difficult. Where I think it bleeds over into marriage ministry, that I think we really have to be cautious, is now saying marriage is hard, marriage is difficult, marriage is painful, well, the Bible teaches enjoy life with your wife in the midst of the toilsome labor. So I don't treat Amy like the toilsome labor. I treat her every day as my companion through the toilsome labor. And that's why I start every counseling session the same. Jesus is your source, Satan is your enemy, your spouse is your companion. And if you want to experience high levels of marital satisfaction, never treat your spouse like the source or the enemy. As soon as you treat your spouse like the source or the enemy, then your marriage becomes the toilsome labor. But I don't read in scripture where my marriage is supposed to be the toilsome labor. Life is challenging and difficult enough. When you go all the way back to Genesis, and I just think this is something we need to add in. And it's become cliche in marriage ministry to just throw out there that marriage is not about happiness. Well, slow your roll just a little bit on that we are called to enjoy life with one another. We're called to walk side by side. I love the Martin Luther line. God could have taken a bone from Adam's head, implying women would rule over men. Could have taken a bone from Adam's foot, implying that men would rule over women, but he took a bone from Adam's side. It's this beautiful picture, yes, of equality, of mutual respect, but I love the word picture of walking side by side through life together, through the garden together, through the toilsome labor, through the difficult seasons and stages of life. So don't treat your spouse like the source of life. Jesus is your source. As soon as you treat your spouse like the source, you've set your spouse up to be the source of all your problems. And as soon as your spouse is the source of all your problems, your spouse becomes the solution to all of your problems. When your spouse is your source and solution, you're stuck.
Right.
So instead, take this mindset. We're walking side by side through this together. I wake up every day grateful. Do Amy and I have conflict? Yes. Do we disagree? Yes. Do we not share the same opinions on everything? Yes. But what we do is we're intentional in life to make sure we're side by side going through the grind, not treating each other like the grind. Because that's where you get to that crushed spirit in a marriage. And we're choosing to treat one another as companions.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think I had really heard that verse in that way, first of all. And I love the context around that too, and just being able to break that down. I feel like I need to rewind. I know like we're recording this, but even when I'm listening back, I'm like, pause this episode, go rewind and listen to that again, because it's such a small shift, but I'm realizing if you fall into that trap of making them the toilsome labor versus doing the toilsome labor with them, it can be a very little shift, but if you fall in one way, it's going to set you up for the direct opposite of success altogether.
Well, and so it's confirmation bias as well. If you make the decision in your mind that marriage is hard, and you get up every day, marriage is hard, and you and your spouse get into conflict. Well, this is how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to. No, healthy marriages don't avoid conflict. Healthy marriages know how to work through conflict and find joy and find fellowship in life together.
Yeah.
We're going to disagree. We're going to have conflict, but my marriage has an enemy. It most definitely has an enemy. It's just not my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to walk side by side with Amy, taking my stand against the devil's evil schemes. But she's not my source and she's not my enemy. She's my companion for sure. And I'm just grateful, 30 years. I have a friend in ministry that says over the course of your marriage, you're going to be married to 5 to 7 different people. I love that because it's true.
Yeah.
I'm a different person at 52 with my kids out of the house than I was in my 30s. Now I get to live in discovery, curiosity, fascination. Who is Amy now? Who am I married to now? That I still companions walking through life together.
Well, and now y'all are in this new season. You're all these kiddos graduating, and had amazing accomplishments. You guys have kind of reached this finish line too with them. I mean, accomplishing that as well. And now here you are, and you get to look and say, look what we've done. Look what the Lord has done. Look what our kids have done. And now what can we rediscover in this new season together too? So that's really cool too.
I still can remember in January hitting the enter key on the computer for my son's last tuition payment at Liberty University. I hit it and I yelled across the house to Amy, "What do you want to spend next month's payment on?" I mean, we were so excited. See, there's a lot of joy to look forward to when they leave the house.
Right. Okay, so thinking again with your book, if you had to kind of summarize it with an answer to this question, other than I hear you saying like waking up every day, choosing your spouse, knowing that they're your companion, knowing that they're side by side with you. Do you have 1 to 2 kind of practical ways that you would use? I'm thinking back to just even the title, A Love That Laughs, humor, laughter to kind of lighten, that the toilsome labor, the everyday load of the hardness, not necessarily of marriage, but just of life and moving through your days together. Yeah, 1 or 2 humorous ways to do that with your spouse.
Well, yeah, and to summarize the book in one statement,
Okay.
couples who use laughter to manage stress, work through difficult conversations, not only report higher levels of marital satisfaction, but they stay together longer.
Okay.
And this is what I tell guys: if you're going to use humor or laughter to work through difficult conversations, timing is everything. Okay. So I am talking, and throughout the whole book, I'm talking about appropriate humor and appropriate timing.
Okay.
So I'm not talking about slamming one another. When someone goes online and they do online dating, which is a lot of couples meeting online, at the top box checked by most people on most websites is, I'm looking for someone with a sense of humor. You're not looking for someone who can tell you jokes.
Right.
You're looking for someone who knows how to walk on the lighter side, who knows how to make fun of themselves and invite you in. It's appropriate. It's not cutting. It's not hurtful. It's shaking the head after we say or do something dumb and be like, "I can't believe I said that." It starts that simple. Pointing out your error in life, pointing out things you fumble through and you're like, "I can't believe that." But the second thing I would tell people, stop trying to be funny and just look for it. Okay. It truly is everywhere. If you get up during the day and when you get home at night, your spouse is going to ask you, "Did you see anything funny today?" You know you're going to be looking for it.
Right.
And when you're looking for it, I promise you'll find it. Your favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze, Brian Regan, Jim Gaffigan, these guys are observational comedians. All they do, it's their full-time job, is to look around every day for the funny and report on it. And I'm telling you, that's how you find your shared sense of humor, and that's how you walk. And it's one of my favorite questions to ask people: have you found or seen anything funny lately? Okay. And I love asking that of funeral home directors, first responders, teachers, flight attendants. You get some of the best answers. It's a great way to break the ice, but it's also a great way to discover your shared sense of humor as a couple.
Okay. Have you seen anything funny today in your few hours?
Well, it's early, but I have several stories that I like to remind people. I live about an hour north of Flippin, Arkansas.
Okay.
And I just love to use this illustration. Flippin, Arkansas is the home of Ranger boats, but a buddy of mine does a whole bit on this. John Branyan from Indianapolis does a whole bit on Flippin, Arkansas. It's 8 minutes. You can look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious.
Okay.
And I remember once him telling me, have you been to Flippin? I said, "I've been to Flippin. Of course I've been to Flippin." He said, "Did you laugh the entire time driving through Flippin, Arkansas?" And this is the power of being reminded I've driven past and through Flippin, Arkansas and haven't laughed because I wasn't looking for it. But now when I go there, one of the first signs you see when you pull into Flippin, Arkansas is the Flippin Church of God. Someone actually named their church Flippin Church of God. And I joke with Amy all the time going, you can't invite your lost friends to the Flippin Church of God.
Right.
Or imagine something goes wrong on a Sunday morning and And you got to call 911. 911, what's your emergency? Yeah, I'm at the flipping Church of God. Somebody get me the flipping cops. And you laugh, but the police cars actually say flipping police.
Right.
They got the flipping high school. I mean, it's everywhere you go. So I'm just saying, look for church signs, because some of those marquee signs where they're putting stuff up, they can get some of the best content.
Right.
And here's my favorite thing: as a pastor now, people know I ask this question. I don't even have to ask it anymore. This is like the number one thing people come up to me on Sundays with. Ted, you're never going to believe what I saw last week. So they're telling me because they're looking for it. And to me, it's simple. It's what we call low hanging fruit.
Right.
But just look for it and you'll find it.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So you've got 30 years almost of marriage under your belt, 3 decades at this point. So a pretty solid foundation, I would say. When you're considering enduring the long haul with your spouse, but you don't want it to just get to 30 years and say, we just endured that together, but we genuinely enjoyed each other.
I love that. That's a great
fun.
way to say that.
Yeah. Thoughts on just that, thoughts on how to get to this part in your marriage and say, we had a foundation built on, again, not just enduring one another, but enjoying one another.
Yeah. So what was natural early on, you need to be intentional with later on. In other words, you don't marry someone you don't laugh with. You don't marry someone you don't enjoy spending quality time with. I never have to look at a newlywed couple and ask, are you guys touching each other enough? Do you guys touch each other enough? They're touching each other plenty. So that's like breathing early on. But after you've been married 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and this is why I prefer to use the word intentionality more than hard work.
Okay.
Because that's, again, it's just so cliche and so automatic for marriage speakers, authors, pastors to go, marriage is hard work.
Yeah.
What if we said marriage requires that you be intentional? Like you get up in the morning, deny yourself, and you're intentional with what was natural early on. So I'll be honest with you, at 30 years of marriage, I don't get up every day and go, okay, I need to touch Amy 5 times today. Okay, we got to spend, at least, we do that because if you'll be intentional with it, it can feel natural again. So your marriage is only going to do one of two things. You're either going to choose, you're going to decide, or drift. That's it. And no one gets up in the morning and says, today I'm going to drift in this marriage. Nobody does that. Yeah. Drift is just, I'm no longer being intentional, no longer making decisions to laugh together, to spend time together, to give non-sexual touches to my wife during the day, to praise her in public, to speak words of high value over. I'm just going to be intentional with that, with what was like breathing early on. And this is why a year or 2 or 3 into marriage, a couple will be like, why is what I say and do not working like it used to? Like some things have changed. Well, a couple things. One, early in relationship formation, you focus on and shine a spotlight on what you have in common, your similarities. After you've been married a few years, you tend to shift and focus to the differences. You don't quite know how to navigate those as well. And I just tell couples, be intentional with what was natural early on and stay off that path of drift. Because here's what happens. When you decide, you live in discovery, curiosity, and fascination. That's why I'm not worried about Amy and I changing in the next 20 or 30 years. We're going to change. I'm going to be a different person at 60, 70. I'm going to be a different person when I retire from pastoring. I'm going to be different, right. But that's okay because we're choosing to enjoy life together. If we stop choosing to do that and we're on drift, the next step on the path or road of drift is disillusionment. And this is what we hear in the counseling office all the time. He's changed. She's changed. This isn't what I signed up for. I've tried everything. I can't make him happy. I can't make her happy. Well, now it's because your spouse went through a change. Bills changes, jobs changes, kids suck the very life right out of us. Our physical health changes. All of those changes require us to be intentional all along the way with what was natural early on. And I put that in the Love That Laughs book because humor was so natural early on. Laughing together enjoying life together was so natural early on that this is one of those factors and skills that we just let fall by the wayside. And this is when you go into restaurants and see couples married 30, 40 years. I can look across a restaurant and see them eating together. They barely speak a word to each other. There's nodding going on, but the loudest thing coming from that table is the slurping of soup. You have to be intentional on that foundation that you shared that we built years ago.
Yeah. So for someone who says, okay, this sounds great, but I just, like, I don't think I'm very funny. I don't think I have much of a sense of humor.
Hear it
Or,
all the time.
yeah, it's been so long. Like, I don't, you say to look for it, but I don't know what I'm even looking for. Like, I feel so rusty and disconnected. Maybe, I liken it to someone who they say, just get up and get moving. Like, just get to walking. And they're like, but I've been living a sedentary lifestyle for the past, decade or whatever it is. So
That's a good way
yeah,
to put it. Yeah.
any thoughts on just someone that might feel like, okay, I would love to engage in this, but I'm not sure I don't know where to start when it comes to trying to make my spouse laugh or, trying to
Yeah.
find something humorous other than tell a joke. And what if it doesn't land? Like I feel a
And
little,
that's the key. I
yeah,
think I hear this all the time from people on radio or podcasts interviewing me going, I'm not funny.
yeah,
And I think you just said it too, like telling a joke. This is so beyond telling a joke.
right.
You do not have to write a premise or a punchline. It's like my dad. You know how many jokes my 79-year-old father leads out with the punchline? And I have to be like, Dad, you just ruined the whole thing.
Right.
When you say, did I tell you that Chicago Cubs joke? Okay, that's the punchline.
Right.
Okay, that I'm not going to laugh now when you
Right.
tell me the premise. So don't think you got to become an expert at premise, punchline, premise, punchline, premise, punchline.
Right.
It truly is pointing something out, getting a laugh out. I can do this in the grocery store. I can do this while driving. It's learning to take the no big deal moments in life, and instead of allowing them to become conflict, learn to just shake your head and be like, oh, that could irritate me. That could annoy me. This was my mentor, Dr. Gary Smalley's passion in life.
Okay.
Taking everything irritating, annoying, and frustrating about the grind of life
Right.
and finding a way to have fun with it. Learning to lighten up, because marital satisfaction is a choice. It's a decision you make. So I would say this. If the person's saying, I'm not funny, I don't know how to engage in this, start by making the choice. I'm going to look for it. I'm going to walk on the lighter side. What holds a lot of people back, too, is I'm going through a difficult season stage of life right now. Doesn't feel appropriate to bring the humor in. But I want to argue a little bit against that to say, as Christians, joy and sorrow are travel companions. We have them both in difficult seasons and stages of life. And the quickest way I could point this out to people, because I love sharing this at events, and I get the head nod like this, that for people that might push back on that, have you ever been to a funeral where the grief is heavy and someone gets up to a microphone and shares a story or a part of this person's quirky personality? And in the middle of deep grief, the room erupts into laughter. That's how you and I are wired. And because we don't grieve like the rest of men, we grieve with hope. I can have joy and sorrow. I can be going through a difficult season stage of life and still need to be reminded that it's okay to find the joy, the humor, and laughter, which is an expression of joy in this difficult season. So I would tell people who say I'm not funny and who think they need to write jokes, just make the decision to look for it and walk on the lighter side and to invite your spouse into that and see what happens.
Yeah. For anyone listening who, I have one tangible way that I know that we have just experienced a lot of joy and laughter. And that's if you have a baby, if you have a newborn, you'll have a lot of joy and laughter in your house automatically, because you start to the fun thing for us right now is observing all the things that she's doing, that it's like she's so brand new to the world that like we would never do. And so we just giggle, when we feed her at night and then she's putting her yogurt in her hair. And I look over at my husband, I'm like, could you imagine if we were at dinner and all of a sudden we just started putting our food in her hair? Like we wouldn't do that now, but it just makes you chuckle because she's not aware to like what she's doing. And so have a baby, and that can
Yeah.
bring some challenges, but it can bring a lot of joy and a lot of giggles and a lot of laughter for sure.
And also I tell people, look up the research on this to see the laughs per day for a child
Mm,
versus the laughs per day for an adult.
mm,
There's something that happens to us as we grow older and take on responsibility. And I would say this, yes, part of adulthood is duty and responsibility, but that does not need to trump the joy and the laughter
mhm.
and the humor. You're not less of an adult when you walk on the lighter side
Right,
and shake your head at yourself. You're not less of it. You're not stepping away from the duty and responsibility. You're just finding a way to bring it all together.
right, right. Do you have a like go-to way that you can get a giggle out of Amy? Like you can get her to chuckle at something. Is there one or two things that you kind of keep in your back pocket that you're like, yeah, this is my go-to way to bring laughter
Well,
into my
thank you.
marriage?
Yeah. And I'm actually pretty proud of this. And I hope she listens to this podcast because uh, my wife has what I call a silent patriotic laugh. When she finds something funny, she places her hand over her heart, she leans forward, and nothing comes out. And my goal is to get that laugh out of her every day. And I used to say at events up until a year or two ago that I get that laugh out of her 5 to 6 days a week. I'm going to argue now, and if she were sitting right here, I think she would agree.
Okay.
I think I get it every day now. I've made it my goal to go for it every day. So the best thing I can do, my go-to back pocket, I love how you put that, is
Okay.
impressions. And I'm
Okay.
not doing any impressions for you because some of them are, just for Amy and I.
Okay.
But she loves when I get in the car after church on Sunday and she'll ask me, like, we have certain church members that require a little more attention. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Right. And I've got probably 10, 12 impersonations of church members that it's so easy.
Uh,
It's so easy for me to mimic their voice, and I'm not making fun of them. I'm true. These are people I love dearly,
right. Right. Right.
but it gets her, every time. And so, uh, and that's just it. I'm not creating anything.
Right.
I'm just looking for it and then repeating it to her in different ways, creative ways, and it can get the laugh. So it's funny because there are times Amy and I are at, dinner with people and the couple will start laughing about something and Amy and I are like clueless what's going on. And I love that because I'm going, they've got a shared sense of humor.
Mm.
That's a story or a history that this couple shares that we don't share.
Mhm.
So we can't really laugh. We would joke and say, you had to be there,
Right.
right? Is our expression that we use. But I love that. I actually love being in rooms where people are laughing and I don't get it.
Mm.
Like my dad's a ham radio operator, and I've watched some of the stuff that he's done. He speaks on it. He like teaches groups, how to get their ham radio license and everything.
Mhm.
And he'll tell ham radio jokes, and the room will fall out in laughter. And I'm sitting there going, like,
Right.
I don't think it's funny at all.
Right.
But that's a shared sense of humor.
Mm.
They have a history together. They've walked together. They share things in common. That's what your marriage is. So look for the shared moments today. And I promise you'll find them. And I promise you, however you define your spouse's laugh, you can get it.
Okay. Okay. Have you written anything else since 2020? Like anything else in the works that you've done or anything that's coming out for you?
The latest book I have out is called Greater Joy Together.
Okay.
And as you can tell, my theme, I have books called Fun Loving You,
Okay.
A Love That Laughs, Greater Joy Together.
Okay.
And so that's a devotional. It's actually my first devotional, 52
Very cool.
weeks. If you want to laugh together, pray together, grow closer together. It's a quick read every week. I would say 5 minutes, but then it gives you plenty to discuss, even an activity, a prayer at the end of every entry, just to help couples learn to grow closer and walk on the lighter side of life.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And that is already out, or you said it's coming
Yeah,
out?
that's out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. One other thing I just thought of as you were talking about you and Amy, and I was just, again, thinking back to the beginning of the conversation, y'all are entering a new season. with your kids being grown, flying the nest officially and all of the things. And then I was sharing the example of we're far from that at this time in our lives, but we have a little one at home. So families that are listening, parents that are listening, any
Mhm.
thoughts for them on just, okay, I want to be more intentional about bringing laughter into my marriage and with my spouse, but what about just in my family in general, like making my family dynamic fun and
Yeah.
engaging and one where we can laugh
Yeah.
together and share that together.
Yeah. For us, we always found that the laughter emerged when we played games together.
Okay.
And I say bring back family game night.
Yeah.
And you got to find the games that work. So, like for us, we have discovered our family's a tad too competitive. So, a Monopoly is not the best to get the laughter out of our family because I find great joy as a father in bankrupting my children
Right.
in Monopoly. And Amy will tell me, "You go easy on these kids." I'm like, "No, somebody's got to prepare them for the real world.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
will knock every house and hotel off this board and then foreclose on every last property."
I
But
stand
we have
by
other games that are. There's a lot of games where you kind of like guess answers that there's no skill or thought to it. If I'm being, you know what I mean?
it.
You got to come up with stuff. We have found some of those card games to be the best to bring out the laughter. And it leads us in the direction of laughter that takes us away from the game and reminds us of stories. So
Yeah.
that's where we find the fun. Our family, when we have family gatherings and my parents are over and Amy's parents are over and it's a larger gathering, we play bingo.
Okay.
Um, and I joke, my mom was raised Catholic, and I'm like, this is just to bring back her Catholic roots,
Right.
all the bingo she played. But yeah, so and I get into full blown. If you've ever been on a cruise ship where they do bingo, mix it up at 8, right?
Right.
So
Right.
we get pretty passionate about it. Find the people in your family that's more natural with it, and put them in charge.
Yeah.
Like put them in charge of the activity and let them run with it.
Yeah, that's super fun. I grew up in a game family. I'm an only child, so my mom would play a lot of games with me because just trying to find ways to, play with me too. And I just grew up doing that with her, my grandparents. But my husband did not grow up in a game family. Like, I don't think he ever played games. And so when we met over a
And
decade
it's
ago,
torture at those
yeah.
family gatherings, isn't it?
When we met over a decade ago, we like introduced him to our family, and now my mom and I joke that we've turned him into a game monster because
Oh,
he is
good.
the one who is
See?
like, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And so we are a full-fledged game family, but we will calendar out on we will pick a date on the calendar and she'll say, we're due for a game night. We haven't had a game night. And so we'll find where it works in the schedule and we put our daughter to bed and then we'll stay up for several hours and play games and eat snacks. And it's great. We love
Are
it.
you a
So
competitive family?
yes, very much so. So we are competitive. We do play Monopoly and we do, have some ground rules, but I think it's fun. We've gotten Cody hooked, and so I think my mom and I at this point find more joy out of just like watching him kind of almost make up for lost time, having not got to do that
Oh,
like growing up,
that's cool.
So I totally agree with that and would put my stamp of approval on that recommendation as well. So any final thoughts? Just like a final thought or a key takeaway, someone listening to this conversation, just as we close our time together this morning.
Well, I'm going to close how I close every talk on laughter
Okay.
with my absolute favorite. Have you seen anything funny lately?
Okay.
And Pat Kershaw was a member of our church for 22 years.
Okay.
She went to be with the Lord at the age of 90. And she sat on the second row of our first service, a retired missionary, worked for International Students Incorporated for 60 years.
Okay.
Loved the Lord. Passion in life was discipling international students, sending them back to their home nations to be leaders. And we met for coffee about once a month. And I remember her sitting down when she was probably 86 years old, sat down across from me at Panera Bread. And I said, Pat, have you seen anything funny lately? And she was so quick-witted. She said, yeah, I saw it just yesterday while getting my mammogram up in Springfield. And I'm like, well, every pastor needs a good mammogram story.
Right.
I said, what you got for me, Pat? And she goes, well, it's at Mercy Hospital. Mercy Hospital is a Catholic hospital. And those nuns, they got verses on every wall up and down the halls at Mercy Hospital. Ted, what verse you think they got hanging on the mammogram machine at Mercy Hospital? I said, Pat, I have absolutely no idea. She said 2 Corinthians 4:8, for we are hard pressed on every side. I said, Pat. And so if you probably have figured out by now,
Yep.
our entire congregation at Woodland Hills Family Church is trained to look for the funny everywhere they go, even in the most serious moments of life. So I miss Pat, but I always share that story. I feel like it's a great story,
Yes.
but it's also in honor of my dear friend.
Oh, that was very sweet. What a great way to wrap. Ted, thank you so much.
No one never knows how to follow a mammogram joke.
No, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to say thank you for your time. No, I enjoyed that story though. So thank you for sharing it. And truly thank you for your time this morning and walking us through just a little bit about your background, your book, your approach to life, marriage, all the things. I definitely enjoyed our conversation and benefited from it greatly. So grateful for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of WinShape and the marriages that are helped and healed on literally a daily and weekly basis. They're grateful for y'all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, until we speak to you again, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. And thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the WinShape Marriage Podcast. We only have 2 episodes left until season 3 has officially wrapped. So catch us back here next week. We hope that conversation blesses your marriage. If you're loving the WinShape Marriage Podcast, will you please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed? You may be a faithful listener and not realized you aren't subscribed. It really helps us out. Also, if you've enjoyed these conversations and they've impacted your marriage, please rate and review this podcast. One listener said, "Thanks so much for pouring into couples with godly wisdom and practical equipping."